1.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
What? If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor.
What difference at this point does it make?
If you're looking to make sense out of what's going on in the world today, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Southern Sense Talk Radio with your host, Annie, the Radio Chick Ubellis, and featuring Curtis C.S. Bennett and the most interesting guests that you'll find anywhere on Internet radio. And you can join the show and let your voice be heard by dialing 917-889-3675. So sit back, relax, and remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
When an emergency strikes, what's your first impulse? If your answer is run to the grocery store, you're likely to find chaos and plenty of empty shelves. So how do you avoid this? Well, simple. You use today to make a plan, to prepare for things that may happen. It's hurricane, earthquake, blizzard, or even social unrest, especially in today's political environment. The practical place to start is by storing up food in your home. And I use My Patriot Supply for my food storage. If you don't have an emergency food supply, it's time to do so. Here's a great item that makes it really simple. A 2-week food kit that comes in a rugged tote. And it's only $75 when you go to my special website, preparewithsouthernsense.com, or call 888-441-7290. This food kit includes breakfast, lunch, and dinners that will last up to 25 years on your storage shelves. So order now and prepare yourself, and then rest easy. So it's very simple. Just call 888-441-7290 or go to preparewithsouthernsense.com. You know what? Let's make it even more simple than that. You're listening to my show, and it's called Southern Sense, and you know you put a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com, and click on the icon for My Patriot Food. If you want to insist, you can still go to 888-441-7290 or go to my website, Southern Sense, put a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com. Be prepared.
All right, and you're here listening to Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, SHR Media, the Lone Star Daily News, up on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, YouTube, Facebook. Oh, the heck with it. Just go to the name of the show, put a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the radio chick, Annie. And today I have no Curtis with me, no Mike, no Cal, but I may have someone popping in occasionally to, talk for a little bit. And his name happens to be Yanni, happens to be my husband. So he may be popping in to join us on the show. I want to welcome everyone that's listening in the studio, as well as those that are showing up in the chat room. Welcome aboard. We're happy to have you. We've got a lot to do today, a lot to talk about. We've got two great guests. We're going to have at the second hour, Karen Singermund. She is a conservative activist. She's gone after the media, and because of her conservative attitudes and teaching the truth, she got fired. And she is now the chairman of the American Freedom Alliance. She will be joining us as our first guest. And then as our second guest, we're going to have the executive director of the Gold Star Ride Foundation, Tony Price. So we have two great guests on the show. Just want to remind everyone that yesterday was the 75th anniversary of the initiation of D-Day. And after we do our normal dedication, we will do a second dedication to those brave men and all of the people that gave them the support in the D-Day invasion that lasted from June 6th until June 12th. So it's going to be exciting. We have someone that popped up in the studio that may be wanting to co-host with us with area code 616. Press 1, then I know that you can join us. Otherwise, I will assume that this individual is just going to be listening in. So as we get started, those that listen to the show and that we start off, each and every show with a dedication to a fallen hero. And today's dedication is going to go out to Specialist Jackson Johnson. And Specialist Jackson Johnson and Sergeant Holly Belinsky, who were killed on March 7th of this year while serving during Operation Spartan Shield. And this is coming from several sources, one of them The Fallen in the Military Times, MyLeaderPaper.com, as well as KFVS12.com. And finally, from Dana DeFever of MLive out of Flint. It starts off as, a pair of soldiers were killed in a non-combat accident on Tuesday, March 7th. In the morning, an Army Central Command spokeswoman confirmed to Army Times. One of these soldiers was identified as Sergeant Holly Belinsky, 37, according to military.com. Whose husband released her name ahead of the Army's official statement. The second was 20-year-old Specialist Jackson Johnson, according to a release from the 184th Theater Sustainment Command. The soldiers were traveling in North Kuwait when their vehicle collided with a civilian commercial truck. 3 soldiers were medevaced to U.S. Military Hospital Kuwait to be treated for their injuries. Johnson was pronounced dead upon arrival at USMH-K. Belinsky died as a result of her injury, and the third soldier was injured, is pending medical evacuation from Kuwait. The soldiers were members of the 657th Transport Detachment, an Illinois-based Army Reserve unit, and deployed to Camp Arifjan. The incident is under investigation. A third U.S. soldier was hurt in the wreck, but that soldier's name was not released. The 3 soldiers were in a military vehicle that collided with a civilian commercial truck. Major Andy Thagard of the 184th Sustainment Command in Kuwait said that the commercial vehicle was a water truck, and the incident is still under investigation. Hillsborough Principal Kathy Freeman said Johnson is remembered fondly at the school. He committed himself to the military early, she said. We are just so proud of him, and we're devastated to hear he has died. He was very well thought of in our high school. We'll be thinking of the ways to commemorate him after we speak to his family. We had a moment of silence for him on March 7th. Army Sergeant Holly Belinsky, her body arrived in Pinckneyville on March 18th. Flags lined Route 124 for miles, and people gathered along the route to pay their respects in her hometown at Pinckneyville. Some with hands over their hearts, and some in tears. We talked to an Iraq War veteran who served in Kuwait and went to school with Sergeant Belinsky. He said it's important to show support to veterans who come home and to the families of the fallen. Great show from our community, Dustin Patterson said, bringing one of our community heroes home, or fallen soldiers. Our community has always been known for being very supportive of the military and welcome home our veterans, our heroes that have fallen, and the ones that come home like I did. He said this hits close to home for him because he knew Sergeant Belinsky personally and even coached her boys in football. We also talked to a combat veteran who was a part of the same Combat Veteran Motorcycle Association as Sergeant Belinsky's brother. Don't let any veteran go to their final resting home alone. Dave Hess said, we were lucky enough to come home. Unfortunately, she was not. So it's behooving on every combat veteran to pay homage and to pay tribute to a fallen in combat. Hess's motorcycle group traveled miles from Mount Vernon to Air Force Base and then to Pinckneyville. He said too many soldiers do not get proper burial that they deserve. If notified, he said his organization will make sure no soldier is forgotten. One of Sergeant Belinsky's best friend, Kayla Arndt, told us we could all learn from Holly. She has a very big-hearted person. She had a lot of compassion for people, and I really hope that everyone can take away the value of compassion these days. She was willing to give everything, even her life, to keep us safe. Even people who didn't know Sergeant Belinsky did things to support her, like Girl Scout Troop 8131, who sent Belinsky's unit in Kuwait homemade cookies after they heard the news. Hundreds turned out to honor and remember U.S. Army Sergeant Joseph Dennis Johnson during his funeral at Central Church of the Nazarene in Flint. The 24-year-old Mundy Township man was killed in combat. Johnson is the first soldier with local ties, the Reverend W. Glenn Gardner said. Johnson loved his job of dismantling bombs and lived by the motto, if it's not worth the risk, it's not worth it. We are here today to pay tribute and honor to a man who couldn't just join the Army. He had to give everything to the Army. So he would call you in the middle of the minefield and say, hey, Mom, guess where I'm at, Gardner said. Today's show is dedicated to these two brave heroes. It is also dedicated to all the brave men and women who serve in the military from the birth of this nation through today and into its future. It's also dedicated to the brave men and women who serve as our first responders, be they law enforcement, firefighters, or emergency services. And to them we dedicate with this song, My Name is America by Todd Allen Herrington. May God bless each and every one.
Born in the grip of oppression,
All right, Todd Allen Herrington, and you're here listening to Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, SHR Media, the Lone Star Daily News, up on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, YouTube. Oh, the heck with it. Just go to the name of the show, put a hyphen in the middle, southern-sense.com. Of course, I'm your hostess with the mostest, the radio chick, Annie. And my guest co-host decided to show up a little late, but always as handsome as ever. Cool Mike, good afternoon, Mike. How are you today?
I'm great. I apologize for being late. I was going door to door as a candidate, but I slid in just a little safe, I would say. Thanks for having me, Annie. Excited to be with you.
Oh, it is my pleasure. Matter of fact, I just pulled your picture up and added you to the video here. So, and we did finally successfully get ourselves up onto Facebook. But if people are looking at me, I'm a little old school today. I'm using a USB headset because my computer that was supposed to be repaired crashed big time. And it looks like the repairs this guy claimed to have made on my computer weren't done or not done properly. So it's back in the shop, not on my mixer board. So if I sound a little funny, that's because I was forced to go old school and use up a backup here. But luckily I was able to get ourselves up on Facebook. Hopefully the next time we do the show, I'll have it up on YouTube also running nice and smooth. But Mike, I wanted to talk about something really, really important. And I didn't see this over a lot of the news stations, and you would have thought that something like this would be on the front page of every single major newspaper in the nation. Yesterday was the 75th anniversary of D-Day. And I saw little clips here and there, and of all things, I would have thought Fox News would have broadcasted the ceremony in its entirety at least. But I didn't even see that anywhere. Did you?
Very little coverage, sadly, on the 75th year anniversary. And it's becoming less and less the same thing with Pearl Harbor. I mean, to the movement, Fox News is becoming more and more left. But in general, they still have somewhat of a conservative base. But in general, the media itself is moving away from portraying these individuals as heroes because their idea, obviously, is a different. They don't look at them as heroes. And it is amazing that the same people that hate us, Annie, we saved them from Hitler. We saved them from Europe being a complete, basically, Hitler contrived, Hitler ran. So, I mean, it just goes to show you, you are never more than a generation from losing everything.
Yeah, and you think of what these men went through. The days of this thing was 2 years in the planning. And these are the countries that participated in D-Day on the Allies side. It was the British Empire, the United States, New Zealand, Canada, Australia, Czechoslovakia, France, Norway, Poland. To put this all together, this humongous operation that came close to failing, very close to failing. And several times it almost came close to being revealed. And the subterfuge they had to use with the German spies to prevent it from being known. And the Germans that dropped the ball when they had the indications that something was coming were not fully prepared. The units involved with the 1st Army on Omaha Beach, the V Corps, which is the 1st Infantry and 29th Infantry. On Utah Beach, the 2nd Corps, which is the 4th Infantry, 90th Infantry, 82nd and 101 Airborne. Over on, we also had the 2nd Army on that one. On Gold Beach, which was the 30th Corps, which was the 50th Infantry. On Juno Beach, the 3rd Canadian Infantry. On Sword, you had the 3rd Infantry and 6th Airborne. The total strength was 156,000 soldiers, 195,700 naval personnel, 10,000 casualties, 4,414 dead, 185 Sherman tanks. You think about this massive equipment that went on the 6th of June, and they didn't secure Normandy until the 12th of June. It was an amazing, amazing undertaking, and it was 6 waves of invasion, and they're saying on the very first wave, there was a 90% casualty rate. The second wave, it went a little lower to 80. The third wave, 70%, until finally the 6th wave made land. Can you imagine that 1 out of 10 people coming off those initial boats would only make it to the shore? That's staggering. That is staggering to think of.
When you say something like that, it is almost impossible to fathom. When you see the actual pictures of all those bodies just floating while people are storming the beach, several of them obviously never even made it. Their equipment was so heavy, but no, Annie, and it really is I don't know quite how to say this without, getting way overly emotional. But what these heroes did is unbelievable, and we should be forever grateful. And it's even to be an American and be ungrateful is one thing, but to be a European and to be completely stupid because we not only saved the kids of today, we saved their parents and their grandparents. And to see individuals like Angela Merkel, as well as the mayor of Great Britain, it really goes to show in a republic what you're fighting for. You're fighting so idiots can be very, very stupid people. And it really is amazing what they accomplished. And we think of D-Day, we think of Normandy. There were many more beaches than Normandy on D-Day. I mean, there's Omaha. It's an endless list of things that were going on. And Annie, keep in mind, on D-Day we weren't just fighting the Germans overwhelmingly. We were fighting the Germans for other countries, but we were also fighting in the Pacific against another empire, Japan.
And don't forget Italy.
It's unbelievably amazing.
Don't forget Italy also. And it was a war that spanned continents. You had the war in Europe, Africa, and Asia. You think about this. It went even in so far as to going into the Middle East, this war. You think about how much of the globe was involved in it. And we had the invasion here of Pearl Harbor. So you think about it. The only country that wasn't involved in that actually had battles going on was South America. The only continent. That is a staggering thing to think of that world war.
Yeah. It's unbelievable what was accomplished on D-Day. And Annie, if you think about it, we've talked about the waves. By the very next day, we had secured the beaches.
No, it was not secure until June. It was not secured until June 12th. 6 days they battled. 6 days.
Was it that long? I thought it was overnight. Well, anyway,
No.
Either way, it is unbelievably amazing what they have done. So,
Yeah, and
wow.
and Trump was over there to celebrate the 75th, and what he did was he read the full text of FDR's prayer on June 6th, which I'm going to take a moment to do that. So we do a dedication to the brave men of the Normandy invasion, and also to all of the brave men and women that fought in the World War II. Because you got to remember, women were out there in the line of fire. And God bless TMZ. I love the old movie channel. They played nonstop yesterday, all World War II movies, The Longest Day, and on and on. And my husband and I recorded them so we can sit back and continue to watch them. So I'm going to read this real quickly. I shouldn't say real quickly, but I do have someone in there waiting to talk to us on the phone, and I'll bring the individual on after I finish Roosevelt's prayer on June 6th for the troops. And he stated, and you will not find a politician being able to say these words. This is how far, to show you how far the Democrats have gone, because they would be afraid to say these words today. But I am not. And I'll read. Almighty God, our sons, pride of our nation, this day has set upon a mighty endeavor, a struggle to preserve our republic, our religion, and our civilization, and to set free a suffering humanity. Lead them straight and true. Give strength to their arms, stoutness to their hearts, steadfastness in their faith. They will need thy blessings. Their road will be long and hard, for the enemy is strong. He may hurl back our forces. Success may not come with rushing speed, but we shall return again and again. And we know that by thy grace and by the righteousness of our cause, our sons will triumph. They will be sore tried by night and by day, without rest until the victory is won. The darkness will be rent by noise and flame. Men's souls will be shaken with the violences of war. For these men are lately drawn from the ways of peace. They fight not for the lust of conquest. They fight to end conquest. They fight to liberate. They fight to let justice arise, and tolerance and goodwill among all thy people. They yearn but for the end of battle, for their return to the haven of home. Some will never return. Embrace these, Father, and receive them. Thy heroic servants into thy kingdom, and for us home. Just bear with me for a second. And for us home, fathers, mothers, children's, wives, sisters, and brothers of brave men overseas, whose thoughts and prayers are ever with them. Help us, Almighty God, to rededicate ourselves in renewed faith in Thee in this hour of great sacrifice. Many people have urged that I call the nation into a single day of special prayer. But because the road is long and the desire is great, I ask that our people devote themselves in a continuance of prayer as we rise to each new day. And again, when each day is spent, let words of prayer be on our lips, invoking thy help to our efforts. Give strength to us too, strength in our daily tasks, to redouble the contributions we make in the physical and the material support of our armed forces. And let our hearts be stout, to wait out the long travail, to bear sorrows that may come, to impart our courage unto our sons wheresoever they may be. And, O Lord, give us faith. Give us faith in Thee, faith in our sons, faith in each other, faith in our united crusade. Let not the keenness of our spirit ever be dulled. Let not the impacts of temporary events, of temporal matters, but a fleeting moment, let not these deter us in our unconquerable purpose. With thy blessing, we shall prevail over the unholy forces of our enemy. Help us to conquer the apostles of greed and racial aggregancies. Let us to the saving of our country, and with our sister nations into a world unity that will spell a sure peace, a peace invulnerable to the schemings of unworthy men, and a peace that will let all of men live in freedom, reaping the just rewards of their honest toil. Thy will be done, Almighty God. Amen. And to this I will add from Dave Bray. Actually, I will end it with Amazing Grace. I see you in there. I see you. Not yet, not yet. I turned to, that's what I said. I see someone waiting, and I said, all right, all right. I'm going to be unmuting you in a few minutes. I got cool mic. I got the song going, okay? I'll unmute you in a moment. The 75th anniversary of D-Day, our dedication to them, to the brave men and women that fought it. My father served in World War II. He got not into battle, but he did serve as occupying troops in Germany. He was too young, and his mother wouldn't let him sign up until his birthday. And on that day, he went straight to the Army recruiting station and signed on the dotted line, and then was shipped to serve overseas in Germany as occupying troop. Both of my grandfathers served in World War I. These were brave men like this that fought for our freedoms and liberties. And Mike, no wonder why we call them the greatest generation. Wow.
How you expect me to follow that up? Man. You know, Annie, oftentimes I look at the name of a building or I see a statue, and I ask somebody, the building or the statue is named after somebody, and I ask somebody, tell me about Mr. or Mrs. Jones or whoever the statue is. And I mean, the greatest generation didn't just fight for the Republic, but I mean, they did so many other things that were just amazing. They were unselfish throughout their entire life, throughout this country. They didn't just fight socialism and communism. I mean, they continued to fight for, for the rights of we the people.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know about the Battle of Athens, when the veterans from World War II came home, and in Athens, Tennessee, where basically a black man was being denied the right to vote, World War II veterans were right after the sheriff. I mean, that's just...
Oh, the Battle of Athens. Yeah, the Battle of Athens was even far more than that. That was when a crooked sheriff actually took all the ballot boxes and had them in the police station and wasn't allowing the public counting of the votes. They were trying to steal the elections. So the World War II veterans armed themselves, stormed the police station, retrieved the ballots, and had them honestly counted. So, yeah, that's what the truth of the Battle of Athens was. But, Mike, we've got someone in on the call, someone that was going to step in as co-host if you didn't show up. The one, the only, and I must say the most handsome individual, far better looking than you, Mike, my husband, Yanni. Poor suffering Yanni is with us. Yanni, welcome aboard, Yanni. He's not even in the office with me. He's on the other side of the house. He's not even allowed near here. Go ahead, Yanni.
I'm listening to you.
Yes, go ahead.
What's up, Yanni?
Yanni, you're supposed to... That's cool, Mike. You're supposed to...
Hi, good person, Yanni. How are you?
When you call in, you're supposed to talk, Yanni.
I don't know how to work this thing, Mike.
It's called a telephone. You just talk into it, honey. Go ahead, Yanni. Yanni?
I don't know what to hit.
You don't hit anything. You just talk.
All you need to do is talk. We can hear you. I don't know what to hit.
You don't hit anything. You just talk, Yanni. It's a telephone. You just talk into it like a telephone.
All right, moving right along. Yanni, what's your opinion of Barack Obama?
I think we lost him. I think we lost him, honestly.
Anyway, Annie, I was gonna tell a great story. This is a true story. Last year, I got to cover with our local magazine that I write for a 100-year-old veteran. He's a World War II veteran. He worked on the fighter pilots, and when they were damaged or when they were damaged and they would return. For a while, he was on land, and for a while on the aircraft carrier. He said that his group was so good at basically repairing and getting them ready to go that they could do it as quickly as we get our oil changed in a car.
It's amazing the stuff that they do.
So they basically got that fighter pilot. They got the plane back to the wherever, whether it was on land or on the aircraft carrier. They could get it ready to fly and go back to battle that quickly.
Absolutely. There was a movie that was on TMC yesterday, which was The Battle of Britain. And it is a powerful, powerful movie. If you have not seen it, people, go to YouTube. Just Google Battle of Britain for YouTube. I'm sure the entire movie is up there. Watch it. It is very, very powerful. The turnaround, they had them down to 2 minutes turning these planes around to get them up in the air. They had to, because if the field was being attacked, they had to get those planes off the field. And to see what they went through. And think this was going all across Europe. It wasn't just the Battle of Britain. It was every airfield throughout Europe and Africa and Asia. And yeah, Vorp is correct. That our racing pit crews have nothing on what these guys could do. And it wasn't just guys. It was, gals were out there on these airfields, too, that were being bombarded, strafed. It's amazing. As a matter of fact, later on this month, we're going to have a Tuskegee Airman on the show. He's going to be with us, I believe, next Friday. He's got a great book out that we're going to be talking about. So we will have an actual Tuskegee Airman on the show. And we had Emery McClendon on, and we were talking about his cousin, who was not only a mechanic on the planes, he was also a flyer. He was not an officer. He was a master chief, but he worked on them and he flew them. He was a Tuskegee Airman. There's very powerful stories that are yet to be told out there, and these men are in their upper 90s. Some of them are in their hundreds, and time is very, very short. We've got to get these stories out. We've got to educate people. It's amazing. It's amazing. But on to some lighter news.
Hey, Annie?
Yes?
You're kind of drifting in and out.
I shouldn't be. That's got to be Blog Talk Radio's for that. Yeah.
Well, I got full signal here. Anyway, yes, you're totally right. And, Annie, I want to mention my father has passed away. But my father entered the war the day after Christmas of 1941. And his platoon was the first platoon into Japan after it was deemed safe to go into Hiroshima. And that is amazing when you think back on it. As a kid, you just don't think about that. But he was in the entire war in the infantry. That is just like, you can't even fathom that. There were no really, okay, you did 2 years, go. That didn't happen. I mean, and he was in the Pacific, and it just really is amazing. He's not alone in what he did.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just unbelievable to,
Well,
and think about this. Think about when we watch those films on D-Day of storming the beach, and all those bodies floating. I mean, those are somebody's sons. They're, there's a mom and dad, a wife, a girlfriend, a kid. I mean, that is their family members. It's not just, that says everything. That these people sacrificed their life. So right now, at this moment, we could be doing Southern Sense on Blog Talk Radio.
Absolutely. And Warport points out that it was only a handful of pilots that fought in World War II. You know, it took so long. It took 2 years to train these pilots and to have them go up, and many of them were shot down on their first or second sorties. A lot of them, if they made it to 35 or 40, was a miracle. And the bomber pilots took the greatest hits. And he points out that the Polish also flew in World War II. And I again refer back to the movie Battle of Britain, where the Polish, that they show them actually, fighting up there. They did speak some English. They just made it as if they didn't, so they didn't have to listen to the British commanders and follow their orders. They were a little sneaky about that. But the Polish did fight. And what happened was when they were shot down, they didn't realize that they're not Germans because they weren't speaking English. If they were shot down over Britain, they were taken into custody until it was sorted out. A lot of these guys risked their necks on both sides of the English Channel just because the English wasn't that good or they didn't speak it. So it's a lot of very, very interesting stories. And I got a thunderstorm coming in right behind me, so I hope I don't lose power here. But I wanted to change the subject a little, Michael, because in about 15 minutes, Karen should be calling in. Wanted to get a little humor into the show because we started off so seriously. I don't know if anyone heard about the Straight Pride Parade. There is going to be a Straight Pride Parade in the city of Boston, and some people in the community tried to stop it. And the city of Boston, the mayor, happens to be a Democrat, stood up and he said, no. He said the city of Boston cannot deny a permit based upon an organization's values. He said the organizers of the Straight Pride Parade don't have a permit yet, but are working to amend their application for permits to host a public event. He did not say what those amendments entail. Whatever outside groups may try to do, our values won't change, he said. I invite each and every person to stand with us and show that love will always prevail. Join us in a celebration this Saturday for the At Boston Pride Parade and in the fight for progress and equality for all. Hooray for him. Someone gets it. It's not about your sexual orientation or your values. If you're asking for a city permit to assemble, whether it's a tea party, or I don't know, Black Lives Matter, we should have an equal opportunity to publicly express our voice. And this mayor of Boston saying, hey, listen, you stand up for straight people, they stand up for the LGBTQXYZ community. You should have an equal voice in the public arena.